This is Ed, and I'm in San Diego, and today is August 7th, and we're coming up to 8 a.m. Here in California. And our special guest coming on in a few minutes is Ron Cooper, and he's based in Maryland, Eastern Maryland, which is, of course, 3 hours later. I love this picture, and Ron likes it too. That's why I'm putting it up here. So this is the continuing series of conversations with Ron Cooper, who is just a wonderful guy, just a very strong man, and with a lot of business experience, very successful. So he and his wife, Marty, um, are the Cooper culture. It's a way of thinking, a way of living. And Ron is in this series with me to explore his life and his thinking and his business training capabilities. And this is, of course, a public relations program. We're not selling anything other than informing you, the public, the business public, about the capabilities of Ron Cooper and the Cooper culture. Application to group training, group excellence, the developmental training, personal training. It's all the culture, the Cooper culture. Stay tuned. We'll be right back with Ron Cooper. Thank you. We're back, and here with us is Ron Cooper, and he is an executive trainer, extremely well known. He and his wife, Marty, are the Cooper culture, and we're going to learn more about this. And we're joined by Dr. Ken Lloyd. Welcome again, Ken.
Hi, nice to see both of you.
Welcome aboard, Ken.
Yeah, okay. So I have nicknamed this particular show and perhaps the whole series in capital letters. I am. In this case, I am Ron Cooper. And all that could mean some interesting times. So I want to welcome you all from around the world who will watch this live recorded program subsequent to today. Ken, welcome. How's things in LA?
Oh, very nice. A little warm. Getting up there into the 90s out here in the valley. So a little tricky to deal with, but all is well. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, you bet. Okay, our note takers are being admitted, and this is going to be recorded. Ron Cooper, thank you so much for being on this show in this series that is going to continue, hopefully. And I have to remove this from the screen here. Okay. Pardon me, I've been attacked by a cough suddenly. I'm trying not to disrupt this broadcast. Ron Cooper, let's go on with the conversation about your life's training and your development into the leader that we see today.
Ed and Ken, thank you for the opportunity to just discuss some, let's call it personnel principles, values, and the like. And in the process, I will bare my soul, not to focus on that, a little bit of the past of the way things used to be. But what I do want to emphasize is the importance of knowing people. And the more we know people, and let's call it, maybe you would call it our idiosyncrasies and so forth, but I do believe everyone is unique. As I have mentioned in the past, I do believe some of us are worth investing, that some of us may be, I call longer term projects than others. But Let me say up front, for anyone who has listened to this broadcast in the past, that you might say, "Well, Ron Cooper, I've heard you talk, and but I haven't heard anything that is particularly revolutionary, new concepts, and so forth." And to that, I'd say, "No, you're correct. I don't know that I'm going to say anything that has not been said in some form in the past, but I just want people to know that there are people with a lot of potential who are not living to their potential because of, could be something in the past, and we are just not willing to discuss that openly until we develop trust, we develop a relationship with each other that I feel that we can move forward with our relationship. And I will say that there may be a person who would say, "Ron, I just don't have the time to learn about your idiosyncrasies, your quirks, and et cetera, and so on. I've got a company to run." To which I'd say, "I'm not trying to change anything about you. However, for maybe the multi-billion-dollar company CEO, if you have your HR department such that the culture of your company is, we do want to learn about people, then I do believe you are going to net the result that you will have a higher retention rate. You will be known throughout your community as a company who cares a lot about their people, and so forth." And so now, with all that as background, one of the things I want to discuss today is the importance of one voice. I will say that in my past, my first 2 decades of my life were largely influenced by a voice, and it was my father. He's no longer here to defend himself, but I will try to rationalize what I believe his background may have been very briefly. But as I think about his background, I can do it now, but I wasn't able to do it then. He may say that, "Well, that's all I knew because that's the way my father was raised, his father, mother, and so forth." And so he merely carried forward a culture in which he was raised. And again, to repeat a little bit of the past, I was told that I should have known, I was told, and so forth, and I could never really determine when or how. And so you never question my father. "Well, Dad, how would I have known that when?" Because that would have been an affront to him. But the way I processed that was, I am intellectually substandard. I am just not good enough. And so that carried on for the first 20 years of my life. But here's where I'm going with this. That was a voice in the past. And I am not trying to, I will never intentionally denigrate my father, but I will say that that was a voice, and maybe at the time that's all he knew. But I will say that there were, I have mentioned before, and I'm going to mention very briefly, 4 men in my life, beginning with my my maternal grandfather, who was a third grade dropout, very quiet, reserved individual, but he was willing to speak with me. That is where my turnaround started. And I would spend every weekend of my life, I lived about 22 miles from my grandfather who owned a dairy farm. I would spend every waking moment in the summer, the weekends, and so forth with him and my grandmother because I just felt very comfortable being with him. He was a very soft-spoken, didn't offer a lot of information, but anytime I spoke with him, he would always engage in a conversation. And I thought, wow, this is just the kind of person I just enjoy being with. There was a point in my life where I would never ask a question because to do so would just solidify in my own mind that only stupid people ask a question about things. And so asking a question was a sign of stupidity, not curiosity. And so it took me a while to overcome that. And my uncle was the next person in line, and speaking in the context of one voice, I did, in fact, listen to multiple voices, but they were one voice at a time type thing. My grandfather, followed by my uncle, were all very positive, relational, and so forth. by just communicating with them. And my uncle would frequently say, "Let's go." That was a very, very operative term to me. To some people say, "Oh my gosh," but I focused on the apostrophe S, us, just the two of us. And so I thought, wow, you would be willing to spend time with just me, the two of us, and we could just, laugh, carry on, and talk about maybe even some people may say nonsensical things, but all of that I documented as data points in my mind that, well, maybe I'm not quite as bad as I think I am. And then later was my high school football coach. And I worked on the farm and, standard 14, 16 hours a day, whatever it took. And at the end of the day, I would run wind sprints. I would run 5 miles, but I would do whatever I could to condition myself to warrant having a position on the football team. And Coach Harville, my high school football coach, made a statement one day that is always just permanently documented in my mind. He said, "Hey, team, I want you to know," and he pointed toward me, "Ronnie," and I was known as Ronnie then, "is the only person who's guaranteed a returning position on this team. Every one of you, everyone else is going to have to earn their way back on the team." And I thought, I don't have the talent to warrant that kind of statement, but he apparently knew what I was doing to condition myself and so forth. The next person in line was my father-in-law, Marty's, my wife's father. And just very briefly, he lost his farm, which was his life, his sole income, in a tornado on Palm Sunday of 1965. And he had a very confident resolve. I didn't know him at the time, but I learned of him about a year and a half later. But I learned in getting to know him because of Marty that he had a very confident resolve that he will overcome that life tragedy, and he's not going to blame anyone. He will just think into it, think through it. And as he and I worked together to think into rebuilding his farm, he made the statement, "Ron, I really thank you for being able to think along with me about different things, rebuilding." He's a consummate do-it-yourselfer. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, Joe, you think enough of me to say something positive about the way I think. One more data point, one more voice. And so those are four men then, and Marty now, who believes in me. And if anyone discerns from what I'm saying that I was extremely insecure, having virtually no confidence early in age, you'd be right on target to describe exactly who I am and who I was then. Ed?
Yeah, tell me how you transitioned from being on a farm into discovering your love for flying.
No, thank you, Ed. And I have done a series of talks on cows to cockpit. And so I was
I love that.
a bit of a cliche, so to speak, but I was, at the best of my recollection, maybe 5 years old when I was at Andrews Air Force Base and we're watching an air show. And the Air Force demonstration team, Thunderbirds, were flying. And I looked up at those aircraft and I thought, oh my gosh, I want to do that. And that became, can I call it an obsession, a focus, a burning desire, whatever term you want to use?
You certainly
But
had a vision.
oh, that was a
Yeah.
long-term vision. I thought, oh my goodness, I want to do that. And I can tell you from with all honesty, I didn't have any idea how to get from being maybe 5, 6 years old to in the cockpit. No idea, but I was fascinated. And so I did not want to tell anybody about that burning desire and the call it focus I had, because I did not want anyone to tell me you can't do that. You're just not the caliber and so forth. So on my own, I would just look at different things, read books. I was fascinated with anyone who would mention the word aircraft, and I would ask about those kind of things. Nearly 2 decades of going through the voices, my grandfather, uncle, high school football coach, and father-in-law. And then I thought, okay, I want to go to college. I think I have to have a college degree. I wondered, well, I'm not sure I'm smart enough for that, but I was accepted to college. And while I was I was still in college, but I made an application to the Air Force, just hoping that maybe somehow, some way, I would be accepted into the Air Force and undergraduate pilot training. And I was maybe a year away from graduation, and I got the notice, the letter, the infamous letter. We are happy to inform you that you have been accepted to undergraduate pilot training. And I can tell you, that was just absolutely phenomenal. I thought, oh my gosh, maybe, just maybe. But I'm listening to the various voices throughout my life, the positive voices. It took 4 very positive voices to overcome the one, what I processed as very negative voice, that I wondered, can I do this? I don't think I can. And that churned over and over in my mind. But the 4 positive voices said, in their own way, listen to one voice at a time. You can, because it was through them I developed the confidence. And I thought, oh my goodness, when I got into the Air Force and was entered into the undergraduate pilot training, several people said, Ron, you were born to fly. And it was everything. Everything in life came together. And that was the dream. That was everything that came together. And I graduated valedictorian. And valedictorian to me was a foreign term. Again, high school grades and so forth. Oh my gosh, that was, just out and away. And I was voted the outstanding leader of my pilot training class. All of that came together, and I hope I can tell your listeners, I don't say any of that in a braggadocious way. I just want you to know the power of the voices that helped me get from where I was, such deep despair, having no confidence, and wondering if I had any worth at all in life. And quite honestly, that it turned to my mind. Who cares? Who
I
cares
want
if I'm
to
living?
I want to jump in if I can and say
Please do.
I am intrigued and really fascinated by this story and this explanation of overcoming the imposter syndrome into transformation uh, by believing in yourself,
Yes.
and then that combined with uh, the apparently total excitement and entrancement with the idea of flying at that stage of your life. Ken, could you jump in here and give a commentary about this kind of thing?
To me, what jumps out about Ron's major success over the years is that you totally earned what you've accomplished in life. Uh, for people who are just sort of handed all of this, your dad's a big leader in the military or has a big business, or don't worry about it, you're taken care of. You just kind of float along and it's all handed to you. And it ends up being, at some point, sooner or later, rather meaningless. And there's been no self, no strength, no inner confidence, just given to you. Well, Ron, here you are, you faced adversity, and you really did. And there you are working on the farm 14 to 16 hours. You're out there running, and mentally you're doing the same thing. You're building yourself. You have a goal, you have a dream. But a lot of people have dreams. Dreams are fine, but they're not going to get you up into the air going 500 miles an hour or whatever you ended up flying as a jet pilot. You have to have plans and a strategy and the strong will to get out and really pursue it. So it wasn't just a dream. You can dream of walking on the moon, but it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen unless you really translate it. And you did this yourself. You didn't let that one key negative voice hold you back. You said, no, I am going to fly higher, literally and figuratively. And you did that. So I just look at you as this high achieving, and that's a very important aspect of who you are. You're, I'll say literally and figuratively, a high achiever. This is what you wanted to do, and you would not let any of this stop you. I'll go out, I'll work 16 hours a day on the farm, and I'll go out and I'll run, and I'll do my thing and pursue this dream of mine. And that you knew it was the dream, and you ended up being valedictorian, and no doubt a great pilot, but more than that, a great leader. This didn't come by just having it handed to you. None of this, the greatness that you've achieved would have gone that way. So I look at you just with great respect, saying what you've done and you've accomplished on your own. You didn't let that one voice bring you down. You listen to other significant voices throughout, particularly the four that you mentioned, and it's just carried you along, and you've internalized it, and not let the naysayers or the non-sayers get you down. I think it's remarkable. I think it's a great career, and now you're inspiring others by what you've done. It's terrific.
Thank you, Ken. I appreciate that. And for the leaders who are listening, watching, I just want you to know that there are likely some people in your organization that are not unlike me. They are being held back because of something. And I don't know that what I went through because of early things, if I was trauma, but let's just say I doubted myself. And when you listen to a voice of a person who is very credible, and again, I've mentioned that when they're willing to invest in you, primarily time, and you know that you can relate very well to them, they are encouraging. But Ken, what you're saying is, and it's very, very true, that you can have a dream, but that dream alone is can be frustration if you don't put action behind it. You must act. You must do something. Now, here's where the one voice can be very helpful, that when you are with a person, the Ed Cohens, the Ken Lloyds of the world, and others who you have reason to believe in you, you ask them questions. If I were to do you think that could be useful to me? You ask those kind of questions, but you know you can, because you're asking somewhat in confidence, but we trust you. We know of your wisdom and so forth. And so I'm confident I can ask you a question. You're not going to hold that question against me. And some people will say, well, how could anyone hold a question against you? Well, please try to understand where I came from. I had no confidence in myself. I wouldn't ask a question because that just verified I'm stupid. But when I have the confidence to ask a question, and I know that you will realistically help me achieve my goals, we have synergy. We're moving in the right direction. That's the action I choose to take. You are the voice I choose to follow. And so here's where I'm going with the single voice, that there may be listeners, and I have done this before, and I know there's some people doing it right now, who are trying to assimilate opinions from different people. And I'm not here to say opinions are wrong. The axiom that opinions are like belly buttons, everyone has one. And Ed, your opinion, Ken, your opinion, just because you're online with me right now, are not any less valuable than someone else's opinion. But if I have three different opinions and I'm trying to sift through which is the better way for me to go, I may get confused, and I may just end up being in what we call a luffberry, just going around in circle, not taking forward action. And so I want to encourage our listeners to find the person who has the voice, the wisdom, the one that we want to rely on. It's that single voice. When we are engaged in a meaningful dialogue, I will take action on what you tell me, that what you recommend. And if I happen to fall short of whatever goal I'm moving toward, you don't hold that against me. You're just saying, no, we're always making course corrections. I believe everybody, every person, every process can be improved and should be improved. But I'm on somewhat of a long-winded diatribe, but that's a lot of my belief. And thanks to you two and many of those within your circle of influence, you have some voices that are very valuable. But I do believe finding that one voice that is the one you want to follow, that is the one you want to pursue.
Let me ask you a question about the meaningfulness to you
Yes.
of America, and that's why I've got this image up here. Uh, to me, excuse me, you embody the spirit of the U.S. to me, of being able to fly, to mentally fly from a place you didn't want to be anymore into the unknown, but you're going to pursue it. And to me, that is America, the ability
Well,
to do that.
no, thank you, Ed. And I will tell you that every person who serves in the military pledges to serve their country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that we will protect and defend the Constitution. And so that became, that was just embedded in me. I'll say very briefly, when I was in college, that was during the Vietnam War era, very unpopular time of the United States.
All
That
of
the
us, the three of us, were in that realm.
Yes. And so those of us that remember the Vietnam War remember the hippies and so forth. And I characterize that time as the six voices who made noise were louder than the 10,000 who remained silent. And so they are the ones who made the news and so forth. But I say that to say that when I was in college, I was thinking I want to fly, and with every interview I had with industry, I asked them, "Where do you get your pilots?" And every one of them said they always come from the military. And I said, "That's where I want to go." And then when I mentioned that to many of my students, they said, "Well, go ahead and go in the military. I mean, if you can't get a real job, anybody can go into the military," which of course, the insinuation is only substandard people serve in the military. I say that to say that I was walking in front of the administrative building I'm a graduate of Virginia Tech. It's known as Burris Hall. And there was a group of students, the hippie type, that were against the Vietnam War, who wanted to lower the American flag, and they were going to denigrate it. And so far as I can remember, I was the only person who said, "Not on my watch, you won't." So I was one person amongst, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, something like that. But I engaged in and I said, "You will not lower this flag while I'm here." Well, I, as one person, overtook however many were trying to lower the flag, and it remained up. Now, you have to put this in a little bit of a context that for me to take that kind of an active role when I'm a very much behind the scenes, no confidence, no courage to reach out. But you just made a statement against my country, and I'm not going to allow that to happen. And so I guess I could say, Ed and Ken, at that very moment, you invoked my country's pride, and will not allow you to denigrate my country, my flag in my presence, because I will take responsibility for that if I allow that to happen. And so I would say, Ed and Ken, that was kind of a deep-rooted feeling I had in spite of the very deep-rooted insecurities I had at that time in my life.
Excuse me, challenging times, that's for sure. I was, so I grew up in Boston, and Boston, with all the colleges and universities, around 1 million students, I mean, literally, and that was a hotbed. And yet I went to a small college in central Massachusetts on a hilltop in farmlands. And boy, I loved being out of the city at that time. Just open spaces and freedom, and the furthest thing from hippiedom.
Yep.
Now, I watched TV all the time and read the newspapers. I was editor of the college paper. Again, there's a small college. So, and I was the DJ on campus, ran the radio station, and also Dean's List. So, and social psychology was I scored 100%
Hmm.
in that. And this is what I'm doing today. It's almost like a straight line from that. Ken, your experience totally different. Not that, but I'm sure we didn't see you on the Berkeley campus in the TV shows, but you probably would be unrecognizable anyway, just like I would have been.
Yeah, Berkeley, we all know Berkeley in the 60s was quite liberal, a lot of what would be called
That's a big
hippies
school.
on the campus.
Huge, huge
And it was
population.
interesting. There were some that were just protesting to protest. They wanted to be part of the movement and get themselves arrested and do all that stuff. There were others who felt as passionately about America as Ron is describing, but there was, and just being in that Berkeley environment, a sense of disappointment that the US was involved in the Vietnam War, which was described in my Berkeley years as, look at, you're just involved, it's their own internal, if you will, revolution. And now we're stepping in and the US is stepping in. And it was more for a lot of us disappointing to see that. That did not stop any number of my friends from ultimately signing up for the military, joining the military. I do remember in the summer of 1967, I was in Canada and ran into a fellow I knew at Cal. He said, "Ken, did you defect too?" So he had literally I said, "No, not exactly." But for me, I was supposed to go into the United States Army upon graduation, and ended up, of all things, not passing the physical. And here I was, a runner and doing all sorts of stuff. But for whatever reason, I'm not to go too personally into it, but there was an issue with my hearing that disqualified me from military service, which I would have done. It was actually a unit within the Presidio in San Francisco. Would have been active duty 6 months and then reserves, but it was more of an administrative unit, which kind of tied into my interest in people in organizations. I still would have been able to serve. But yeah, we had quite a spectrum up there, all the way from some very conservative that you never hear about at Cal, all the way out to those who were protesting for the sake of protesting, and some, if you will, true believers that were willing to put their lives and careers on the line, get themselves thrown into jail for engaging in activities that were supposedly against the war, but were really more self-destructive than anything else. But it was certainly an interesting era, and all of us in that period had to do a lot of thinking and growing up, and not just in terms of our classwork, but what's going on in the world and where are we in all of this. And it was a tricky period, and certainly no automatic easy answers. There are certainly plenty of debates that were going on, but for me, yeah, not in the sense of, yeah, go out and get yourself arrested, go out and sit on the freeway or do crazy stuff, start destroying personal lives and property. That's way off the chart.
So I
And
was in
yeah.
the Army Reserve in a medical unit, and it developed into a very fortunate experience for me and a life-changing experience being involved in the medical unit based in Boston. And this is after graduation. And so the medical unit was an operating room surgical unit that was and the surgeons, the doctors in the unit, it was a small unit, were all from Harvard Medical School, cream of the crop, if you will. And I was not from Harvard at all, but they welcomed me into the the role sort of like a nurse, but operating room technician is the title. They taught me how to prepare a sterile tray, uh, and uh, and I did. And but my specialty developed in the years that I was involved in with these guys as the people taker care of guy. The families of the injured people or the people nature of care. That was my specialty. And I really loved that. And the whole experience was that we were on the cusp of being activated over to Nam, but never got there. They found that because of the uh, educational level and expertise in the thoracic surgery, and this area here is the thoracic. So a lot of gunshot wounds and, injuries for sure. But they developed a system, this is pre-Zoom by years, of photographing with movie cameras operations. And I was somewhat involved in that. And then making the films described how the doctors handled things and set things up. And then they shipped copies of those films over to NAM for the field generals and the specialists to view how to do things. So the echelon, the higher ups, I'll be brief here, decided that this unit was too valuable doing that than risking injury in life. And so that became the core. And it was quite an advanced thinking at that time. And the implementation of it, I was really honored to be a part of that, frankly. And still to this day, I remember the medical training.
Ed and Ken, what each of you is saying, I think very fundamentally, we will almost always find whatever we're looking for, positive and negative, what I'm referring to. You look for, if your orientation, if your mindset is to find something positive in people, situation, and so forth, you will. If your orientation is, oh my, this is just one more. And if your focus is negative, you will find as much negative as maybe more than you can handle. But where I'm going with this is as we have a mindset, as we want to become aware of the positives in people, we can, in fact, discern what may be a hidden talent in people that people are not going to tell you about, but you can discern there's more to Ken and Ed than what I am seeing in your current position. And as I choose to invest in you, let's say the time to speak with you, I can determine these positive aspects in you. And I may think that, Ed or Ken, how about if and then maybe move you to another position because you have talents I had not recognized before and so forth. But I'm looking for the positive. And so the voice, as we choose to align ourselves with a positive voice, we are going to move in a positive direction. That's almost always guaranteed. Now, am I willing to invest in a person to try to find that positive aspect in you? My hope is yes, and that may or may not be the culture of my company. That's a lot of what I'm about.
So now in your training, you're looking for business just like everybody is. So how do you transmit that to the prospect now?
No, that's a very fair question, Ed. And okay, so in the context of cows to the cockpit, what is it that I have learned in that
Funny.
transition that might, just might, transition to the boardroom, have application to the boardroom? I've mentioned it before, but critical thinking. We have to always, always, always in the cockpit. We're flying at speeds that we have to be able to think ahead. What if? What if something were to happen to my aircraft? What if something were to happen to my wingman? I can't stop and say, well, I need a committee to or something to think about this. No, I have to have thought through it, and I maybe have to have an 80% solution already devised that, yep, I've already thought about this. And so again, I'm not trying to in any way be a fortune teller, but what I am saying is critical thinking. As we are critical thinkers, as we can think into various scenarios within our companies, our families, and so forth, we might be able to think into, well, what if various things were to happen? That can I maybe avoid total chaos because I've already thought through a lot of this. But I tell you what, let's think through this a little bit further. What are some of the most current factors? But maybe I have a 75, 80% solution. Let's sit down at the table. Let's make certain we know all the facts and factors involved in this, and we will make a firm decision. And so once I've gotten the inputs from you, and I will say that, let's just say that I have the confidence to say that Ed and Ken, each one of you bring talents that complement me because I'm not good in the way you think, but the three of us together, we have a great thinking team. We're going to think into all this. I am responsible and accountable for making the decision if that's the position I'm in, but I want your inputs, and I will say at some point, time out, I've got all the inputs I need, my decision is. And so when we have the culture of loyalty, even if you disagree with my decision, or they'll say that you would have processed the facts and factors a little bit different, we're all going to join in this together because you know I'm responsible and accountable. And as I am responsible and accountable, what that means is, well, Ed and Ken, if I reach the wrong decision because of, I'm going to acknowledge that. And so I have now reassessed and I'll make a different decision. But I know I know the impact on each of you about that decision, and I care enough about you to know exactly what that impact is. But to me, that has a lot to do with what I've learned in the cockpit that is applicable to industry. And there are a lot of other things such as that are very applicable.
So let me ask you a question just to zero in as we are coming to a close here. We could probably go on and on and on with this, but I don't know if the audience will stay. So let's bring this to a focal point of what you're saying to me and to the audience and to Ken here is you exhibit your qualities yourself to the prospect, the corporate executive that you're talking with out there in the audience about they should trust you. And here's
Yeah.
why. Ken,
And
would you agree?
Oh, trust is absolutely fundamental, foundational. If we can't trust each other, I mean, why would I stay with you? I don't know if you may say something against me in private, in social media, something like that. No, we have to have trust. Trust is earned. I have to demonstrate trust as a leader. And so I can tell you that trust is a part of the culture within our company, but I have to demonstrate that I trust you. And so I think trust is earned because I first off demonstrated. And that to me is just part of what the culture is. And many people, well, we know, I think all three of us know, many of our listeners know, you stay with or leave a company because of people. And it's a matter of how do we trust each other? Are we going to be loyal to each other? And it's less so because of the pay, more so because of people, the culture, the trust, how well we believe in each other. And so I'm saying that to say that when we develop that trust and loyalty, that becomes an integral, foundational part of our culture. I can almost guarantee you people, statistics will tell you, people will stay with you. And even if a company down the road might be able to pay a little bit more, if you have a better culture, statistics guarantee that, I mean, I can verify with statistics to say that people are likely going to stay with you rather than switch companies and go down the street because they're higher pay, even though it's a lesser culture. And so those are just some of the facts that apply.
This is a book I'm holding up that Ken has written, and performance appraisals and phrases for dummies. But when you were working in that apparel company, medical apparel company, as a head of talent development. Um, I bet you did the same thing that Ron is doing.
Absolutely, Ron. What Ron is saying is absolutely the perfect roadmap for building loyalty and engagement and performance and commitment and building a solid team. To be honest, open, transparent, trustworthy with your employees, to not play games with them, but to really be I hate the word authentic, but to really be authentic and to be genuine with them really makes a huge difference. If you're playing games and you're slick and smooth and articulate, and letting it all flow and manipulating people around, that's not what people want. That's not how you really build a loyal and committed and productive team at all. And just to tie in with what Ron is saying, there's this whole aspect of what's called expectancy theory. And what we expect of others clearly impacts the performance that comes. If I have an individual, for example, I don't expect much of this person. Guess what? I'm not going to get much out of that person, in part because my behavior is going to show I don't expect much. I mean, there have been literally studies on this. They'll take teachers and say, look, we're going to have you work with a class. Now, these are not the sharpest students in the school, but you'll have a session with them. We want to know what you think afterwards. What the teacher isn't told is that these are the brightest kids in the grade, the brightest. But they're told, hey, don't expect much. Teacher comes out after spending an hour with this group of students. What'd you think? Yeah, not much, not really there. I know you have to work harder with them. I could just see that, yeah, this is a slower group. That's with the highest and brightest kids in the class. And the reverse as well. Hey, you're going to a classroom. These students are not our best and our brightest. Be patient with them, be understanding. And if these are actually the bright students, they won't perform at a high level. And it works both ways, whether they're with the sharpest or those that need a little bit more attention. Their expectations impact their behavior, and that impacts ultimately the performance that you generate from your team. If you come in with positive expectations, which is what Ron is talking about, let's identify the special skills, talents, abilities, and maybe that person isn't in the right place. Instead of just going in and expecting the person, I don't expect much here, that's exactly what you're going to get. So look at our own expectations for our own performance. What do you expect of ourselves? If I expect myself to fail in some situation, the chances of my doing so go way up. If I expect others to fail, they're more likely to do so. If I expect them to succeed, they're more likely to do that as well. So it ties in with exactly what Ron is saying.
No, and I'll add to that just very briefly, Ed, in the context of time. A topic we'll discuss a little bit later on is I believe there is a continuum between home and the office, meaning if things are going well at home, there's a pretty good chance you'll arrive happy to work. And if things are going well at work, pretty good chance I'll send you home happy with a positive attitude. But the reverse is true as well. And so, how can I, as a leader, offer to help you at home should you be having any problems at home? Some people think, well, that's your private matter. It doesn't relate to work at all. Well, actually it does. There is that continuum. And as we have developed trust and loyalty amongst each other, we can develop a culture that, tell you what, I'm willing to invest my time to help you wherever you are because you, Ken and Ed, are worth it.
Ron Cooper, the Cooper culture and the website, Ron.
The website is www.thecooperculture, COOPERCULTURE. Go there and you will find everything that's about us, how we can offer to help you achieve your strategic objectives, how we can help you advance, get to wherever it is you want to go. And I look forward to discovering wherever it is you would like to go and how can we help advance you.
Cooper Culture, thecooperculture.com.
Correct.
That's great. Okay, so I thank you for your time and for the deep dive into Ron Cooper. It's really revealing and actually a learning experience for me. Thank
No,
you.
I appreciate it, Ken and Ed, and appreciate everybody else, but and it's this is not so much about me, but as to say that you know, I used to think maybe I'm just one of a kind. Nobody else is as low and as bad as I am. But you know, through life you find out that nope, I'm not the only one like this. That you may have some others who have talents that just need to be discovered.
Ken, would you like to sum up?
Yeah, I can sum it up real easily. Ron, for all you've done, all you've accomplished, I salute you.
Indeed.
And thank you, Ken and Ed.
This is great. Okay, I'm going to do a little editing, not much, and I'll deliver the show back to you later today.
Thanks
Sounds
very
great.
much.
You always good to be with you.
Thank
Right
you,
back
sir.
at you. Thank you so much.
Thanks
Be
for
well.
being on the show. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.